Hello and welcome back to another Parry This History video. Today we are exploring another topic from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and today's topic is the city of Kuttenberg in the year 1403. So, as you likely know, Kuttenberg is the metropolitan center of the entire game. So with it being such an important and prominent part of the game, I figured I'd help you out with a real-life historical overview of the city, as it existed in the year 1403, the year in which this game takes place. So settle in and let's break it down, so you know what Kuttenberg is all about. Imagine traveling back over 600 years to a time when Europe's landscape was shaped by kings, knights, and bustling towns. In this period, much of Central Europe was part of the Holy Roman Empire, a collection of many kingdoms, duchies, and city-states that worked together, at least in theory, under an emperor. One of the most important places in this empire was the Kingdom of Bohemia, located roughly in what is now the Czech Republic. Bohemia's fertile lands and rich mineral resources made it a sought-after realm, and its rulers played a key role in European politics. Kuttenberg, known today as Kutna, was once one of the brightest gems in the Bohemian crown. Unlike sleepy villages that dotted the countryside, Kuttenberg thrived on valuable silver mines that drew in people and wealth from far and wide. Its location was ideal. It sat near important trade routes that connected it to other major European cities, and it was close enough to Prague, Bohemia's capital city, to benefit from royal attention and steady streams of merchants and craftsmen. All of this helped turn Kuttenberg into a major player in the region's economy. Focusing on the year 1403 puts us at a time of both prosperity and uncertainty. The king of Bohemia at that time was Wenceslaus IV, a ruler known for dealing with tough political struggles. Conflicts between the king, powerful noble families, and the church were common, and these tensions were slowly building toward bigger changes that would soon shake the entire kingdom. Just over a decade later, the Hussite Wars would break out, sparked by calls for religious reform and frustration with the established church. In 1403, this conflict had not yet exploded, but there were clear signs that trouble was brewing. Understanding Kuttenberg during this pivotal year helps us see what everyday life looked like before these major storms hit. This video aims to paint a detailed picture of Kuttenberg as it stood around 1403. We'll explore the city's political situation and its relationship with the crown, dig into how its thriving mining industry fueled its wealth, and look at how different groups of people, from miners and merchants to priests and local leaders, helped shape its character. We'll also consider how its religious and cultural life were tied to the larger shifts happening in Bohemia. In doing so, we'll see that Kuttenberg's story was about much more than mining silver. It was about a community on the brink of big changes, holding its breath as new ideas and growing tensions began to appear on the horizon. To understand Kuttenberg's unique situation, we need to know what it means to be a royal city. In medieval Bohemia, towns could either belong to local nobles or be under the direct authority of the king. Kuttenberg was among those special few that answered directly to the crown. Because of this, it wasn't just some backwater mining settlement. It enjoyed a higher status that brought both recognition and real benefits. As a royal city, Kuttenberg gained important privileges. For example, it had a certain level of independence in how it handled its own affairs. While it still had to follow the king's orders, it could elect its own council of local leaders and set rules for trade, markets, and other businesses. The city did not have to deal with the demands of a noble landlord who might try to squeeze it dry. Instead, the king supported its growth, since more silver and wealth from Kuttenberg also meant more stability and income for the royal treasury. Kuttenberg's fortunes were closely tied to whoever wore the Bohemian crown. In 1403, that was King Wenceslaus IV. He had inherited the throne in 1378 and held a strong claim, being the son of Emperor Charles IV, a much-admired king who had lifted Bohemia to new heights. But Wenceslaus did not have his father's steady hand. His rule was marked by deep political struggles and clashes with powerful nobles and church leaders. This political instability affected every corner of Bohemia. When the king struggled to maintain order or lost favor with powerful lords, towns like Kuttenberg felt the ripple effects. Sometimes the king's attention would be drawn away to deal with rebellions, rivalries, or church disputes. During these periods, royal cities had to carefully navigate their own path, making sure they remained loyal to the crown while also protecting their own interests. For Kuttenberg, a stable king meant a secure frontier flow of privileges and support, but an embattled king could mean uncertainty and far fewer benefits. Within Kuttenberg itself, governance worked through a mix of local leaders and royal representatives. At a local level, a city council made up of leading citizens, often wealthy merchants or influential burghers, handled daily matters. These people were the backbone of the community. They passed laws to keep the streets orderly, managed public funds for projects like city defenses or market improvements, and helped settle disputes among neighbors. But the crown didn't just leave Kuttenberg to run itself. Royal officials were stationed in the city to make sure its valuable silver industry stayed under the king's control. A burgrave, a kind of royal overseer, could be found here, as could mint masters, who managed coin production at the Italian court, otherwise known as the Royal Mint Complex. These officials answered directly to the king and kept the flow of silver coins steady and honest. By supervising the mines and the mint, they ensured that Kuttenberg's wealth served the wider kingdom and not just the city's residents. Although Kuttenberg's role as a royal city meant balancing two worlds, local leaders who shaped the city's character and day-to-day life, and royal agents who safeguarded the kingdom's interests, this balance allowed Kuttenberg to prosper, even when the political winds blew in unpredictable directions. Kuttenberg's wealth and fame rested on one crucial resource: silver. In the late 13th century, miners struck upon rich silver veins beneath the hills around the town. This discovery sparked a boom that turned the area from a simple mining camp into a thriving city. For medieval Europe, silver meant more than just shiny metal. It was the backbone of coins and commerce, and Kuttenberg's mines provided a steady stream of this precious commodity. The workers who dug these mines were a mix of Czechs and Germans, each group bringing its own mining techniques and tradition. Over time, they developed advanced methods to reach deeper into the earth. They used wooden supports to keep shafts from collapsing and improved ventilation to make the work less dangerous. The miners were organized and protected by detailed rules, many of which came from a royal mining code known as the Lus Regale Montanorum. This set of regulations, introduced under earlier Bohemian kings, set guidelines for fair wages, safe working conditions, and the division of profits. It helped keep the mining industry running smoothly and prevented endless squabbles over who got what share of the riches. All that silver needed to be turned into usable coins, and that's where the Italian court comes in. This was Kuttenberg's Royal Mint, a bustling center of skilled coin makers, engravers, and supervisors who worked under the king's watchful eye. Originally established by earlier Bohemian rulers, the mint truly flourished under the Luxembourg dynasty, which included Wenceslaus IV. The aim was simple: take the silver and turn it into a high-quality, trustworthy coinage that everyone in Bohemia and even beyond would accept. One of the most famous coins produced here was the Prague groschen. Introduced around 1300, it quickly became a popular currency that spread throughout Central Europe. The groschen's reliable silver content gave people confidence in its value. This stability made trade easier, both within Bohemia and with foreign merchants. When traders knew they were getting a fair coin, they're more willing to do business, and that kept the markets lively and strong. Kuttenberg did not exist in a vacuum. Its silver and coins reached across the kingdom and beyond its borders. Prague, the capital, was just a short journey away, about 70 kilometers, and that meant merchants constantly traveled between the two cities. Kuttenberg's connections didn't stop there. Its trade routes reached other Bohemian towns, linked up with important markets in neighboring regions, and extended into broader European networks. These trade links allowed the city to bring in goods that the local area couldn't produce, such as fine fabrics, spices, wine, and manufactured goods, which flowed in and out, and helped along by skilled merchants and financiers who made sure deals were fair and profitable. This steady stream of commerce meant that Kuttenberg's wealth didn't just come from the ground, it was also built through smart business dealings. Over time, the city's economy became like a well-tuned machine. The miners unearthed silver, the mint turned it into trusted currency, and the traders carried it far and wide, fueling growth and prosperity for everyone involved. By the early 1400s, Kuttenberg was home to a population that likely numbered in the several thousands, making it one of the largest and most prosperous cities in the Kingdom of Bohemia after Prague. What made Kuttenberg stand out was the variety of people who called it home. Czech and German settlers had flocked to the city ever since silver was discovered, and this blend of communities created a lively, multicultural environment. There may have even been a few individuals from other nearby regions drawn to the city's economic opportunities. In daily life, language played a key role in shaping how people communicated and did business. Latin served as the official tongue for important records and church matters, while Czech and German were both widely spoken among the citizens. Merchants, miners, and town leaders often switched between languages with ease, reflecting the city's cultural mix. This language diversity helped Kuttenberg connect with a wide range of visitors and traders. Like most medieval towns, Kuttenberg society was divided into layers. At the top stood the city's elite, rich burghers, influential mine owners, and officials tied to the royal mint. These individuals had a wealth and power to shape local policies, support building projects, and even influence regional trade. They lived in more comfortable homes, enjoyed finer clothing and food, and often held respected positions on the city council. Below them were the skilled artisans, such as blacksmiths, carpenters, and weavers, who made the everyday goods needed to keep the city thriving. Miners and laborers formed another critical layer, risking their safety underground to bring out the silver that kept the economy growing. Although their work was tough, miners often earned decent wages for the time, protected by the mining regulations that aimed to keep conditions fair and safe. At the base were the service providers and unskilled workers, people who sold goods in the market, tended animals, or performed basic labor. While they might not have enjoyed the influence of the city's upper classes, their efforts kept the city's day-to-day life flowing smoothly. Together, these groups formed a complex web of social relationships that made Kuttenberg's success possible. Living in a wealthy mining city had both rewards and challenges. On the positive side, Kuttenberg's prosperity meant bustling markets filled with goods. Residents could find fresh produce, cloth, iron tools, and even luxury items brought in by foreign merchants. Streets would have been busy with traders and townsfolk going about their business. The city's strong economy also meant there were opportunities for guilds and confraternities, or groups that represented different trades, religious interests, or charitable activities. These organizations helped maintain quality standards, supported their members, and contributed to community projects. However, like most medieval towns, Kuttenberg faced issues with sanitation and housing. Streets were narrow, sewage systems were basic, and it could be cramped living in close quarters. People relied on wells or streams for water and had to keep an eye on hygiene to prevent disease. Despite these challenges, the city offered a sense of excitement and possibility. A thriving silver industry, a mix of cultures, and the rise of important guilds all worked together to give Kuttenberg a unique character, one that set the stage for its citizens to weather the changes and conflicts that lay ahead. In 1403, the people of Kuttenberg lived in a world where the Catholic Church guided not only their spiritual lives, but also their everyday behavior. The Hussite movement, which would soon cause major religious upheaval, was still on the horizon. At this point, most people followed the teachings and traditions of the Catholic faith without openly questioning them. Churches and monasteries played a central role in the community. They set the rhythm of daily life with regular services, feast days, and processions. Priests and monks provided spiritual guidance, taught moral lessons, and sometimes offered basic education to the young. In many ways, the local religious institutions helped shape how people thought about right and wrong, reinforced social order, and encouraged acts of charity, including caring for the poor or supporting local hospital. One of the most visible signs of Kuttenberg's faith and its wealth was the construction of the Church of St. Barbara. Named after the patron saint of miners, this grand Gothic structure was intended to be a symbol of the city's prosperity and devotion. Although it would take many decades to complete, the fact that builders and craftspeople had already begun work on it in 1403 showed just how serious the city's leaders were about leaving a lasting mark on the landscape. Local prosperity meant that Kuttenberg could afford to hire skilled artisans. These experts carved intricate stonework, painted religious scenes, and created beautiful stained glass windows for churches and chapels. Wealthy merchants and mine owners sometimes sponsored artworks or donated funds for religious decorations, both to honor God and to, of course, show their own status. Architectural and artistic projects drew inspiration from styles popular in Prague and other European centers, blending these trends with the city's own sense of pride. While not as famous as Prague, home to the kingdom's oldest university, Kuttenberg still enjoyed its share of cultural and intellectual activity. Its connections to Prague Prague meant that ideas, books, and sometimes scholars themselves made their way to the city. Priests and traveling clerics brought not only religious teachings, but also news, stories, and knowledge from other parts of Europe. The city's wealth allowed it to sponsor scholars and artisans who passed through, teaching new skills or sharing fresh ideas. This constant movement of people, especially merchants, helped spread fashions, building techniques, and even popular tales from distant regions. As a result, Kuttenberg's cultural life didn't stand still. It evolved as the city engaged with the world beyond its walls. In 1403, Kuttenberg was, in many ways, a place of steady faith and growing cultural sophistication. It was a community that honored tradition while steadily pushing forward, building grand churches, supporting the arts, and making sure knowledge and style flowed freely. All of this happened just before the tide of religious change would transform not only Kuttenberg, but the entire kingdom around it. By 1403, the calm surface of Bohemia's political scene was beginning to ripple. King Wenceslaus IV faced ongoing challenges to his authority. Some nobles felt he wasn't firm enough in maintaining order and protecting their interests. The clergy, too, had their complaints, often feeling that the king's policies didn't show them the respect or influence they believed they deserved. Meanwhile, many commoners were growing tired of power plays and corruption at the top, and they longed for a more just and stable leadership. All these simmering tensions created an uneasy atmosphere across the kingdom. While Kuttenberg itself wasn't a hotbed of open rebellion in 1403, the city could not help feeling the effects of these power struggles. Officials and leading citizens watched carefully to see which way the wind would blow. They knew the king's fortunes could shape their own future, affecting privileges, trade, and even the safety of their minds. Although the Hussite Wars would not erupt until after the death of Jan Hus in 1415, the seeds of religious reform and discontent were already taking root. Educated commoners, smaller landowners, and some members of the clergy were starting to question the church's practice. Grumbles could be heard about the selling of indulgences or the wealth and power held by high-ranking church. These early whispers of change were not yet loud enough to shake Kuttenberg's Catholic foundation, but the more observant leaders in the city may have sensed that something was in the air. From Kuttenberg's perspective, loyalty to the church and the crown brought stability. After all, the city benefited from royal attention, and its people attended mass at churches that preached traditional teachings. But if new ideas about faith begun to spread more boldly, the city's religious establishment might worry about the consequences. Changes in belief could mean changes in authority, and that could threaten the careful balance that helped Kuttenberg thrive. Kuttenberg's biggest strength, its wealth, could also be its greatest weakness in times of trouble. In a kingdom facing unrest, a city known for its silver mines and reliable mint might become a prime target. Rival nobles, disgruntled factions, or even foreign forces could try to influence or control Kuttenberg to get their hands on its riches. Leaders in the city would have been aware of this danger. Prosperity made Kuttenberg valuable not just to friends, but also to those who would use its resources for their own needs. With the kingdom's politics growing more unpredictable, the city's leaders had to remain alert. While the future was uncertain, it was clear that maintaining good relations with the crown, keeping an eye on emerging religious debates, and strengthening defenses could all help protect Kuttenberg from whatever storms lay ahead. In this moment, around 1403, the city still enjoyed its golden, but the growing tension in Bohemia's political and religious life hinted that change was coming, and that Kuttenberg's leaders and citizens would need to adapt if they wanted to hold on to their prosperity and independence. Looking at Kuttenberg around the year 1403, we see a city at its height, rich in silver, proud of its growing architecture, and steadily making its mark within the Kingdom of Bohemia. Its status as a royal city set it apart, granting it the freedom and privileges to manage its own affairs, while still benefiting from the king's favor. Through its mines and the royal mint, Kuttenberg helped shape Bohemia's economic strength and currency stability, making it a major player not only within the kingdom, but also on the broader European scale. Its population was diverse, blending Czech and German influences and speaking a mix of languages that reflected the city's openness to new ideas and distant markets. This cultural mixing, combined with the prosperity from the silver mines, fueled a community life that included busy markets, vibrant guilds, and religious activities centered on Catholic institutions. Construction projects like the Grand Church of St. Barbara showed that the city's ambitions went beyond simple profit. They aimed to leave a legacy of faith, artistry, and civic pride. Yet even as Kuttenberg thrived, the kingdom around it was growing restless. King Wenceslaus IV's uncertain leadership, rising tensions within the church, and the early rumblings of religious reform hinted at a future in which old ways would be challenged. Kuttenberg, with its wealth and connections, stood at a crossroads of these coming changes. Its silver, once a guarantee of fortune, could also make it a target in times of conflict. Its strong ties to the crown and the church would be tested as new ideas and demands emerged. In this snapshot of 1403, Kuttenberg's story is one of balance, enjoying its current prosperity while poised on the edge of transformations that would reshape Bohemia and all of Central Europe in the decades to follow. It reminds us that even the most prosperous and stable moments in history are never truly still. They are stepping stones to the future, where old structures may give way, new voices might rise, and the fate of a single city can reflect the fate of an entire kingdom.